Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Already in mantra number 4, it was complete. What was complete? The definition of Brahman was already complete as the one who is Uparisthaha. Uparisthaha means the one who is in the Uparisthaha dealt with what we call in English transcendental, dealt with Bhagavan or Brahman from the transcendental standpoint. That although it created everything, it did not become the universe. Because that kind of a view is pantheism. It is not Vedanta. So this is something which is to be noted. So therefore, there is a transcendental dimension. A definition from the standpoint of the transcendental dimension and a definition of the same Brahman from an immanent standpoint. Immanent, not imminent. Okay, immanent. Immanent means that its existence is all pervasive and there is no name, no form that can be said to exist without the presence and the knowledge, the sentience of Brahman. And this sentience and presence being limitless, the Jagat is also, the universe is limitless. You cannot really scope out everything. It's just so much there because, Brahman is limitlessly big and has lent its presence and sentience in the form of the universe. So the universe is what? Mithya, or a dependent reality. So this much we have covered, and we need to just sum it up, because otherwise what we are going to study now, it's not going to make sense. We have seen the definition of Brahman from the standpoint, two standpoints. The first one is Uparisthaha, or the transcendental dimension. The definition of Brahman from the standpoint of transcendence. Otherwise, there is a mistake committed and one starts to think that everything has become Brahman. The whole universe is nothing but Brahman. So Brahman has become the universe and has spread itself, and so there is no more Brahman. Because if you really want Brahman, hug a tree, hug a kitten, whatever it is, you have to keep looking because Brahman has become the names and forms. This is not Vedanta. This is a philosophy, an entirely different philosophy called pantheism. So pantheism is different from Vedanta because we say that Brahman lends its presence and its sentience to everything in the universe, and what is it? It itself is untouched by this lending process. Unlike a loan shark who lends and then who doesn't sleep at night, worried whether the money will be returned back or whether my bank balance is going down. No such worries. Brahman being limitless, the universe is also limitless, because this limitless Brahman is in the form, is Uparisthaha, in the form of that which is unafflicted, unaffected by whatever it manifests as. Because the manifestation is as though. So therefore the created Jagat is not really created, it's a projected Jagat whose projections and withdrawals keep, this cycle going. So the projection and withdrawal are there, and then this, this projected universe is made up of names and forms which are based on Brahman's presence, existence, Brahman's knowledge, because Brahman's knowledge is the knowledge of the object, and Brahman's limitlessness, in the form of everything in this universe limitlessly manifest. And so therefore the universe really doesn't have a leg to stand on, and it's standing on one leg, and that one leg is Brahman, really. So the universe is dependent upon Brahman. Brahman is not dependent on the universe. This is this is what is called the transcendental definition. Then we have an immanent, not imminent, immanent definition. And the immanent definition involves how every name and form is non-separate from Brahman. Brahman is not any name and form. So all names and forms are part of what is called mithya, the transactional reality, which can be neither affirmed as self-standing, because it is not, nor can it be denied as existent, because if Brahman is existent, and if the name and form that we are talking about, any name, any form, is non-separate from Brahman, so you cannot say that this doesn't exist. So it's hanging in between existence and non-existence, absolute non-existence. So the world is not Shunya, world is Brahman. Brahman is not the world. So this is this is the immanent aspect of how, in order, so hugging a tree is hugging Brahman, because there is no other Brahman available to us than all these. You have to go through the manifest forms, starting with your own body and inquiring, is the body I? Is the mind I? Is the senses I? And what is this I? What is the answer? The body is Brahman, mind is Brahman, senses are non-separate from Brahman, but Brahman is the indweller of this body, mind, sense complex, without any conditions, without becoming the body, becoming the mind. Brahman is not the body, Brahman is not the mind, Brahman is not the senses. This is how we keep the immanent and the transcendental aspects, very forefront in our minds when we talk about Brahman, Bhagavan, self, etc. So now, in mantra number 5, which is, a very important mantra for the reasons we'll be seeing soon, this is, this mantra is purred as an answer to the Valakhilyas question that, okay, we understand that there is, that there is a being who is the prachodayita, the impeller of all actions in the form of sentience, and the one who is, who is there in the whole universe, behind all forms, names, and behind again within quotes, who is informing all names and forms, and who is informing all, all the presence that is there in the universe. So that this twofold definition of Brahman should have covered everything. In fact, this is Vedanta, correct? Yeah. This itself is Vedanta. What more do we need? We don't need anything else. This itself is Vedanta, and then we should have stopped. We should have stopped studying here itself, because this is a definition that is complete. And so why this other question from the Valakhilyas has come? The question from the Valakhilyas has come because even though the definition of Brahman is complete, the vision of the Upanishads is not complete. Because the purpose of any Upanishad is not to define Brahman. Why? Because the purpose of the Upanishad is to make you understand that, that Brahman is nothing but yourself. So the definition of Brahman is incidental, in terms of communicating this vision. And it's in fact incomplete, because if you define Brahman and leave it, then what's the point? Okay, there is this thing called Brahman. Every name and form is Brahman. Brahman is not any name and form. What does it do to me? Nothing. Okay, moving on. This is what will happen. Moving on to what? the next mindless, distracting activity, because it doesn't address the core pain, the core problem of what the seeker is seeking. The seeker is seeking to be whole when, and this is a very interesting problem, the seeker is seeking to be whole when the seeker is already whole. The seeker is seeking to be free when the seeker is already free. And the seeker is seeking to be the sought when the seeker is already the sought. That's something for thought. Yeah. So it's a very funny problem. It is again, this problem is on the same level as all the manifest names and forms in the universe. And so we already discussed that all the names and the forms in the universe, they are called, the transactional reality is called, the transactional reality comprising all names and forms is called what? Is called mithya. Can neither be affirmed nor can be denied. Like your shadow. Does it exist? Well, I can see it. And it imitates me. If I go like this, it also goes like that. It's always behind me. So yes, it exists. But really, does it exist? No, it's not. It doesn't really exist. So you can't affirm it. You can't give it a social security number. And then you can't, make it into a person. Because it's not. It's a shadow. But you cannot say it is non-existent. In India, we have a saying. It's a superstition. That sometimes disembodied beings, in the form of, some ghostly creatures who kind of have a body, what do? They take on some body, an apparition of a body, and they walk, amongst the living. And what do? They just sort of interact and, do funny business because they want to, they have died with some unfulfilled big chip on their shoulders in the form of desire for some, retribution, vengeance, etc. And so they're trying to eke this out through this, some kind of an apparition body. And then how do you tell, whether the person is a real person, real again within quotes, transactionally real, or whether this person is a ghostly being. So you look for the shadow, and the ghostly being apparently does not cast a shadow. So this is something that, people say, just a little whatever aside. But nonetheless, this is the point is this, that, the whole thing is like a shadow. You can't affirm it, you can't deny it. It exists and but it's not really, self-existent. You don't see shadows, catching the bus and then going to work with little shadowy, shady-looking briefcases in hand. You don't see that. Shadows are always attached to the person, so to speak. And then they come and go. They can never be affirmed. They can never be denied. Whose existence can never be, denied or affirmed. So like this, the whole Jagat, don't say it's a shadow of Brahman. This was just an example. The whole Jagat is a manifestation of Brahman. Just like the shadow, it is not self-standing, the universe. And just like the shadow, it cannot be denied, so it's kind of in between existence and non-existence. So it is all about interactions. It is all about transactions and this is the question I asked earlier, is that the transaction is always between names and forms. Transaction cannot be, between two Brahmans. Why? This is the question I asked. Why? Very obvious question. Yeah, there's only one. All that is there is non-dually one. You can't even say half Brahman, quarter Brahman, 1/5 Brahman. No, it's impartite reality. So really speaking, even though the definition of Brahman is complete in up to mantra number 5, we saw how the Valakhilyas were ready for the knowledge, how Brihadratha, even though he was not ready for the knowledge, he did this penance, and then he became ready for the knowledge. All these things, he purified himself, literally by standing in the scorching sun for 3 years. And so like this, only 3 years. And here we have trouble staying, staring at the sun for 3 seconds. And so this is, he purified himself to gain qualification for this knowledge. But what is this knowledge? If it's not finishing at the definition of Brahman, what else is left? What is left is just this whole thing, the gap between what I call I and Brahman. That is what is left. And that gap is like the gap between, Sat and Mithya. So the Mithya, which is the body-mind complex, how is it connected to this Brahman, and how is this Ahankara, which is also Mithya? Mithya again means dependent reality, that which is not self-standing. So the Ahankara, which is also Mithya. Why is Ahankara Mithya? Because you see, anything that comes and goes is Mithya. Does the Ahankara go? Well, not really. Well, in sleep it goes. Yeah. In sleep it goes. Sometimes it is big and it is all got a chip on its shoulder. Nobody loves me. Nobody is paying attention to me. People are insulting me left, right, center. And sometimes what? Sometimes it is small, contented, happy. It's not, it's not coming in the way. And sometimes it is, resorted to a causal form in sleep. So therefore, Ahankara is Mithya. Anything that undergoes change, we have seen, is Mithya. Anything that has a name and a form is Mithya. Well, Brahman has a name, but it doesn't have a form. All forms are its forms, but it doesn't have any attributes, any forms. And so really speaking, what is now, at stake here, and this is again an example of a very hidden mahāvākya, an extremely hidden mahāvākya, but nonetheless mahāvākya means that which conveys the vision of the Upanishads. Yeah. The vision of the Upanishads, is mahāvākya. And what is this mahāvākya? Mahāvākya literally means a very important sentence. A sentence that, hearing which, it is a mind-boggling, a sentence that has mind-boggling proportions and potential for one's transformation from seeker to what? From the one who is a contented person, no longer a seeker. So it takes away the seeking. This is the sentence. And all the other, things we have been studying up till now are just little, what should I say, building blocks along the way. Some building blocks are there like these huge, what are they called? These boulders brought by the Vanaras to bridge from this place called Jaffna in Sri Lanka all the way to Rameshwaram, in South India. And now they are saying that this is not a natural formation, it's a quote-unquote man-made, bridge. They are saying that now. All this time it was just a natural formation, and the greed of commercial, shipments and everything. They wanted to go in between, what is that? In between India and Sri Lanka, because why do you want to go around? Well, there is a sunken bridge, and it's part of our history. No, it's just a little natural formation. Well, the Ramayana talks about it. So there are big boulders and then little small things small little pieces of, gravel and small stones and pebbles that are fossilized, that somehow has held it together. Its only thing is it is sunken. We say it is sunken because the water level has come up. That's nothing. It's going to come up even more with all this warming and climate change and everything, All the coastal cities are in peril in another 50 to 100 years. That's what, say this climate change has been happening, at various points in creation. And then we see this, sunken bridge. And now they are saying that this is what? This is man-made. That is questionable because maybe it is Vanara made. Vanara doesn't mean monkey. Vanara means Narova Nava Iti Shanka, means there is a doubt whether it's a human being or not. You have to take a second look. Some kind of humanoid species. Yeah. Human-like. And so, anyway, so this is, this boulders. So some mahāvākyas, are like these big boulders which the Vanaras carried. Very important. Prajñānam Brahma, Ayamatma Brahma, Tattvamasi. They hit you in the face. They are there, huge boulders. And some of them are hidden like these pebbles. But nonetheless, they bridge what? Not India and Sri Lanka. That's just the example. They form a bridge between this, this jaded Jiva and beautiful Brahman to show that they are one and the same. That's what it is. They form a bridge to these mahāvākyas, are the stepping stones that help us cross, that help one cross the horrific ocean of samsara with snapping alligators and riptides and whirlpools and I don't mean the washing machine, okay? Whirlpool and then this, seaweed, etc. One is a flotsam and jetsam, and Vedanta ushers you into crossing this bridge. And the Upanishad is this bridge, and the Upanishad is nothing but mahāvākyas strung together. Yeah, that's all it is. It's a beautiful bridge of mahāvākya. So this is what one has to cross, with the help of a teacher who's explaining these mahāvākyas. And like I said, some of them are huge, like these big boulders. If you look at that photo, the NASA photos from India to Sri Lanka, some of them are huge, and some of those, some of them are not boulders at all. They are little kernels that are holding the boulders together. Everything is now fossilized. Yeah. So now, this mahāvākya here is like a small little pebble. It's not the boulder mahāvākya, tattvamasi, ayamatma brahma, prajñānam brahma, all like these big Upanishads. Like what? These, like Taittiriya Upanishad, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That's a mahāvākya. And, then there is Prajñānam Brahma. And then, people just pick out 4 mahāvākyas from 4 Vedas and they say there are only 4 mahāvākyas. That's just wrong to say that. It is that which is called an Upanishad should have at least 1 mahāvākya, maybe several. Kathopanishad has several because, there's a whole section, etat vaitat, hamsashuchi sat, vasurantarikshasat, Hota Vedisat, Atithir Duronasat, Nrishat, Varasat, Ritasat, Abja, Goja, Ritaja, Brahma Mahat. Meaning it's all, this is a mahāvākya because everything is Sat. Sat, 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 Sat. Nrishat, this the truth of the human being, Sat. Varasat, Ritasat, everything, Abja, Goja, everything that's born of the waters, everything that's born of the earth is Sat, Sat, Sat. What is this Sat? Brahma Mahat. This Sat is nothing but Brahma. This is a mahāvākya. And then it says, Etat, Vaitat. Like that, that cause is this, indeed, this effect, and this, what we call effect, is non-separate from the cause. This alone is that. You are Jagat Karanam Brahma. This is what has to be understood. Without this understanding, you can define Brahman in flowery language. It is not going to do anything. Defining Brahman as this wonderful thing. We don't know where it is. And, it has got all these wonderful qualities, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. This is how people talk. That there are qualities of Brahman, but you can't handle it, and then it's only gained in the silence. I heard a speaker like this. I don't know, it's sometimes difficult to sit through such talks after studying with Pujya Swamiji. And, so I had to sit through this talk. And why me? Pujya Swamiji also had to sit through this talk because he had, some sadhu said, I'm coming to Rishikesh and I'd like to visit the ashram. And so out of respect, Swamiji said, would you like to say a few words? Yes, I want to talk about Brahman. And Swamiji got very excited. Yes, please talk about Brahman. And then this person said, you can't, the thing to say about Brahman is you can't talk about Brahman. Because Brahman is just, Brahman is opposed to noise, and you have to just sit in silence because Brahman is found in the wellspring of silence. Brahman springs forth, and therefore, and then, of course, if Brahman springs forth in the wellspring of silence, then what is there to talk? But the talk about the Brahman not being available for talk lasted for 2.5 hours. Our lunch was also late because there was no way to stop this man. So this is how it is. People say Brahman cannot be talked about and then give a 2.5 hour talk about Brahman, which cannot be talked about, which is found in silence. If it's found in silence, what is noise? If it's opposed to Brahman, then that means there is a parallel reality. Then you are not saying Brahman is non-dually one. So if noise is not Brahman, you have to, wear noise-cancelling headphones in order to go to Brahman, then there is a problem. If Brahman is opposed to noise, there is a problem because then there is Dvaita. Then Brahman has Ragadveshas. Then what about ignorance? I just told you yesterday, Brahman is not even opposed to ignorance. Not opposed to heat, cold, not opposed to any kind of opposites. Even adharma, Brahman is not opposed to. Like the sun, it just shines. It brings adharma to light wherever it is. It brings, this ignorance to light. When I say, oh, I don't know Brahman, I don't know myself, help, that means what? When a person says that, that means that light of Brahman is shining the light even on ignorance. So you cannot have Brahman opposed to anything. And so really speaking, every Upanishad has a mahāvākya or several, and some of them are very, 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 very hidden. And this one also is, an example of a very hidden mahāvākya. Hard to find, and you can easily miss the bus. And what is a mahāvākya? Jiveshvarayoho aikyam Vakyam. So that, that which is, that which is that which reveals the oneness between Jiva, this miserable seeker, and Ishvara. Yes. And whenever I talk about Brahman, it is only in the form of Ishvara. So it's not enough to say that, you are not the body, mind, sense complex. From the Jiva's side, you are that which is the whole and which is, which is the witness, and you are not, you are the truth of this body. You are not the body, mind, sense complex. You are not all the names and forms in the universe. You are the witness. You are the subject. You are not the object. That's just again a partial understanding. It doesn't help. So what has to be done is to go with the message that is in keeping with the human quest. And the human quest or request is what? The human quest is to be one with the cause of the universe, to be important, to be the whole, to be in charge, to be free. And as long as one is embodied, as long as this Dehatma, Dehatma Buddhi is there, this, this desire to be whole, to be free, mutes into, morphs into, transmutes into the desire for world domination, power and control. The unfortunate but true. So this is where the desire is. Desire for world dominate becomes, because it's not recognized. It's not recognized as what it is. And so what? Since it is not recognized, it is, it is seen as some, it is seen as some kind of a desire to be important, to be approved, to always be good. And even if I'm not good, I don't care. I have to look good. This is a great pressure that people have. I have to look good, especially with people who matter, like bosses, teachers, people who are in charge, authority figures, and, people who matter. I have to look really good. How to look good? Just, say a few things. Say a few things that make everybody have a great impression of you, and then when nobody is looking, one can do whatever one wants. You can do. This is a great pressure to look good and to appear, wonderful. And so, we see this in the ashram setting all the time. People come and then, they are very nice. Very nice means in the ashram, there is just this whole, like all the kindness, all the compassion, everything comes out in dealing with all the other ashramites and everything. And then what? They leave the place, and on the drive home, there is road rage. Get out of my way. What happened? What happened to what was here? Well, here nobody is looking, and at least nobody, I don't know this person who I'm asking to, get out of the way. This is what happens. There is this pressure, and this pressure to look good and to look like one is so giving, and one is so kind, and one is so compassionate, and one is so generous without being compassionate, patient, kind or generous. This is, this is because the desire for the truth is not recognized. One is just, still succumbing to ragadvesha pressure. The desire, when the desire that this is not really, this is not really what I'm seeking. I'm not seeking to look good in the end. To be, like this goody two shoes, like everybody should approve me and everybody should think I'm at a high level of achievement, whether material or spiritual, without really having that high level of achievement. This is a pressure. This is the same pressure which one feels even after coming into the spiritual realm. And that's why one becomes all high and mighty, and Vedanta has been leveled, not without reason, I tell you. Vedanta has been leveled with the accusation that the people who are Vedantins are aloof, inaccessible, and sadly uncompassionate. There is a kernel of truth to this. Yeah. And right now, ouch is right. And so right now I am in the process of putting together a panel at a conference, to look at this issue of isolation and exclusivity when it comes to a charge that is leveled in terms of, Vedanta, And this is something which is really ill-informed, sad and ill-informed. Because if I am going to be aloof, and if I'm going to pretend like I don't have any flaws, and I'm going to be unreachable because I'm all Brahman now, and I have, rattled off a few mahāvākyas, Even a rattlesnake makes noise, So just because I rattle off a few mahāvākyas and I'm above everybody and everything, this is a difficult situation. And why does this situation, and this is something that every aspirant in one's process of exposing oneself to the knowledge at some point or another gets into this, passes through this stage. I say passes through this stage because it is really a stage. And even though one feels like one is stuck in it, one has to, hasten to come out of this stage. Yeah. Because this is a deterrent to jnanam. Even though one may have the knowledge, this knowledge refuses to abide and it is filled with vagueness, doubts and errors. And the main error being, I'm above everyone else. All I have to do is just pretend to be good and pretend I have to keep up this impression that I have to be the best aspirant, spiritual aspirant, and the best person who already knows. And so how do I keep this impression that I already know? No, I don't make any mistakes. How can you not make any mistakes? I just keep quiet. I don't, mistakes come only when I dare to speak. Yeah. I just keep quiet. And then what? Let them think anything. Mistakes happen when I dare to speak, when I dare to say the wrong things, when I dare to be honest enough to expose myself, when I dare to be, just out there to show myself and say, okay, I'm having these problems. And, yes, I'm impatient. Yes, I get angry. Yes, I'm working on it. Yes, I have this problem. Yes, I bite off more than I can chew and then I get stressed. This is what, this is the owning up of all this is what is going to make one, is what is going to make the ahankara humble. And this humility is a very important dimension of Shraddha for the teaching. Yeah. Otherwise, this Shraddha doesn't come. And so here, this is the mahāvākya, if it is not internalized properly and if it is not studied fully, what happens is that one goes off on a tangent, starting to think that one is, one is some kind of a, above everyone else. And this is, noticed in the spiritual realm and also in the material world. One wants to look very good and, seen to, one is hankering after approval. And this is, therefore, the definition of the self as other than the body, mind, sense complex, dehad vilakshana, it is different from the body is not enough. And the definition of Brahman from these two standpoints is also not enough. What has to do is to come together so that the quest of this miserable jiva is joined with the answer to this quest. The seeking has to be complete here. The seeking has to be, answered, and the seeking has to stop. And therefore, in the mantra number 5, there is what? There is a hidden mahāvākya. And where is that? In the first line, Puruṣasaṃjño. A one-word mahāvākya. One-word mahāvākya. We saw this yesterday, but today I am, what is that? Today I am defining it as a mahāvākya, and we are going to look at it in detail. Puruṣasaṃjño. And what is this? Sava esha sukshmaha agrahya adrishya. So here we have to take both the definitions, the definition of the jiva, and where did we get the definition of the jiva? We didn't have the definition of the jiva. Don't forget Brihadratha's monologue and go back to what? Page 2 for that. Asthi charma snayu, mantra number 3, Asthi charma snayu, majja mamsa shukra, shonita shleshma, ashru dushite, vind mutra vata pitta kapha sangate, durgandhe nissare asmin sharire, kim kamo bhogaihi. In Brihadratha's revelation after his tapas, that this malodorous body, which is an assemblage of blood, bone, skin, marrow, flesh, and all kinds of secretion and excrement, this is what is the use? This is just a, what is that? This is just a bhoga yatana. Somehow it is living. And somehow it is just going forth, and then somehow it is, keeping on fulfilling its desires. But what use? There is, in this distasteful body, further, which is subject to hunger, thirst, sickness, grief, fear, and all other these perishable things, like even a shrub, like even all these biting things, damshakaha, mashakaha, these biting things, and these flies like a house fly and all these other biting things, like a leaf that keeps falling from the tree. This body is what? This body cannot be I. He understands this. And so from the side of the jiva, this whole definition has been given completely earlier. This is just a summing up. This whole definition has been very beautifully, if a little startlingly, given. And what is that? And that this body cannot be what? Cannot be the I. So from the standpoint of the jiva, this is the jiva, the truth of the jiva is not this body, but there is something else that's observing this body. It is the witness who can rattle off all these defects about the body. It is a witness that is seeking a defectless truth of itself, because it cannot stand all these defects. This is what was already told, and the definition of Brahman from two standpoints was already told, from the standpoint of Uparisthaha and from the standpoint of the fact that it is that no name and form is separate from Brahman. Brahman, as though has occupied all names and forms without leaving any residue and without really losing anything of itself in the process. This was also already revealed. So then what? So now the two things are going to be brought together just in this one word, Puruṣasaṃjño. Who is called Purusha? Puruṣasaṃjño means that which is known as Purusha. Who is called as Purusha? Even in the vernacular languages, unfortunately, it means man. It's just because it's a masculine word. But in Sanskrit, it doesn't mean man. I told you the two derivations yesterday. One is what? Who remembers? Who was there yesterday? Many of you were there yesterday. What is the definition of Purusha? First definition? Yeah, Purishete. Very good. Yeah, and the second definition is that which fills up everything. So two definitions. One is the one who sleeps in the city. The one who sleeps from the city. In the city, in a citadel of this body, mind, sense complex, which as though has locked this consciousness. Has locked this consciousness in, like even in the ancient times, people used to lock themselves in the fort to be freed from predators. Yeah, to be safe, to protect themselves from predators. This is how it is. They used to lock themselves in the fort, and so that they would be protected from invaders and predators. And they would do that when there were invasions. And supposing somebody would say, the town crier who would be, sitting on top of the fort, on the turret of the tower, would say, "Oh, there is a band of hyenas coming this way. Okay, quickly get into the lions coming." And and there is stories of children and people just being dragged away, weak people being dragged away by this lion, and so there is a man-eater lion there out, so get into the fort. or these people are invading, get into the fort. So as a way of protection, they would just get into the fort. And like even, like even this body, it only lets certain things in. It has got a defense mechanism. It won't let all the germs in. And even if it lets the germs in, there is some disorder, which is also part of the order, and usually a karmic order. Somebody comes down with a flu and somebody doesn't. Why? Because of this. And so therefore what? So therefore all this is so important to understand. All this is very, very, very important to understand, that there is this body, which is indwelling. There is a being indwelling this body. And from the standpoint of identification with the body, the being says, I am small, I'm not all, I am full of problems, I am an idiot, etc., etc. And then who is Ishvara? Puruṣasaṃjño. Who is Jiva? Puruṣasaṃjño. From two standpoints. But how can you just describe Jiva as this wanting being? Yeah, Puruṣasaṃjño, because the word Purusha has a different origin, vyutpatti here. The one who is sleeping the sleep of ignorance, as though locked up in this citadel of this body-mind complex and identifying with this body. Identifying with this body completely as the truth of oneself, thinking I'm as good as this body, I'm as good as this mind, I'm as good as the senses, I'm as good as what I do, karta, I'm as good as what I receive, bhokta. This is what this body is. And so this is what I am, because I am as good as this body. This is what is called the first definition of Purusha. But really speaking, what is Bhagavan? Puruṣasaṃjño. Oh, Bhagavan is also called Purusha. Oh, it's like two people. One is a small employee in the organization, in a corporation. And one is the CEO. Both of them have the last name Smith, because the surname Smith is very common. Both of them have last name Smith. So like in India, some last name like Gupta, very common last name. So there is one Gupta who is known as Gupta Ji, because what? He is the CEO. He is called with respect, and people who you respect, you add G at the end, and so to show the sign of respect. And so he is called Gupta Ji because he is the managing director of the company. And then what? And then there is another Gupta who is just simply Gupta, who is the gopher. G for Gupta, G for gopher. And what does the gopher Gupta do? Gopher Gupta, brings tea. Gopher Gupta takes one file and, takes it somewhere, things that cannot be sent by emails, things that has to be signed, takes it to the CEO's office, and then gets the signature and puts it somewhere or takes it back wherever it needs to be taken back. So Gopher Gupta goes into the managing director's AC cabin and says, oh, you and I are the same because we have the same surname. And this, if Gopher Gupta were to say that to the director Gupta Ji, then Gupta Ji is going to dismiss him on the spot. What nonsense are you talking about? You and I are the same. Get out of here, you are fired. Yeah. So how can you say Bhagavan is Puruṣasaṃjño? I am Purusha. Okay, I understand. You just explained nicely how this I is caught up in this body-mind-sense complex and then as though feels trapped, as though feels like I don't have enough and I'm limited. Okay, I understood that fully well. But Bhagavan, limitless, completely opposite of this I that you just explained. But here it is known as what? Puruṣasaṃjño. This Bhagavan is known as Puruṣasaṃjño. How is this possible? Well, we go to a different rendition and a different, derivation of the word Purusha. What is Purusha here? Sarvan Purayati. That which fills up everything, that which is everything, that which has not become anything because it is everything, that which is, that self-conscious, self-effulgent, all knowledge, sentient being. And what are you? Self-conscious, self-effulgent, knowledgeable being. But then, how come I don't know this? How come? But Bhagavan is all power. Yeah, that all power is an upadhi. It comes and goes. All Shakti is an upadhi. All knowledge of this and that, Sarva Vetritvam is an upadhi. Knowledge of Chinese, knowledge of Greek, knowledge of all kinds of languages, even languages that have some clicks in them like Zulu, which only those people can talk. I mean, really, very difficult language. So, I don't know any of these. Yeah, that's because you have a mind. You have a mind. You have identified with this mind. And so therefore, you can only know this and that. No, that means I can't know Vedanta. Try again. Yeah, better luck next time. Because you can know Vedanta. Why? Because the knowledge of Vedanta is not dependent on your memory. And it's not even dependent on your mind. It happens in the mind. But the mind is not the agent of this knowledge. So it's not dependent on the mind in the sense that the buddhi is not the agent of this knowledge. It's just a location where the knowledge takes place, because the knowledge has to take place somewhere. Yeah, that's all it is. So the mind is not the agent of this knowledge. The mind is the locus of this knowledge. So the knowledge of Brahman takes place in the mind, not due to the mind. So therefore, this is a very important thing. That's why pramana. That's why I need to listen. That's why I can't just do it on my own. All this comes in with just one word, Puruṣasaṃjño. Because it is nothing but Purusha. And this Purusha is the one that is, that defines the so-called limited, existence of the jiva, and the so-called limitless upadhi or powerful, existence of Ishvara. Both are existence. So-called limitations. Why? Because the body is mithya. It comes to an end. Mind is mithya. It comes to an end. And so you don't have to wait for the body and the mind to come to an end to understand that you are Brahman. Even while living, while being in this body, you can see that you are nothing but Brahman. Yeah. All that you are is Brahman alone. And so what? And so this is what this is the knowledge. This is what the knowledge is. And, you can't say, so what after this? Because it puts an end to the one who wants to know. It puts an end to the desiring person. It puts an end to the seeking person. Okay, so after I know I'm Purusha, I'll just sit quietly in one place. You don't have to. You can. You can. But you don't have to. Then what's the difference between the seeking me and the non-seeking me? The seeking you is full of pressure to gain this, that, starting with people's approval. The non-seeking you is free to do things or not do things, but you don't have to do anything in order to be big, in order to be important, or at least to be seen as important. And in order to, you don't have to amass wealth in order to be secure, because you're already secure. That is what the whole thing is. You're free to do. I mean, Pujya Swamiji did a lot of things, but everything that he did was to help. Loka Sangrahartham, to help the people. That's all it was. And that is done out of compassion and out of prarabdha. Prarabdha means some sadhus are there, some jnanis are there who just sit in one place. They go to a village or a town and they just sit and they don't move. Whereas some jnanis, some sadhus keep moving. It depends on the person's prarabdha. That is what the whole thing is. We have to understand. And so we are not talking of doing or not doing or just sitting, idle. We are talking of the pressure behind the doing and the identification of oneself as the doer, which drops in the wake of this knowledge when it is totally and fully owned up and assimilated. That's what the whole thing is. So this is just like I gave the example yesterday, wave and ocean. Yeah. What is the ocean? The ocean is a limitless upadhi. Upadhi is like a crystal, Behind that you put yellow color, green color, red color. It looks as though the whole crystal has become yellow, red, green, orange, purple. And then when you take away the cloth behind it or the colored paper behind the crystal, then the crystal is what? Free of all attributes, free of all coloration, free of all everything, anything that you can describe. What color is the crystal? No particular color, but that which is free enough of attributes to support any color to manifest as any color. And so when supposing, it's just like that. So the ocean is huge. It is a whole ecosystem on its own. It contains all these things. And then a little wave, a powerless little wave, is capable, if it has a human mind, is capable of feeling pangs of limitations and is capable of being instructed by another wave, a guru wave, who happened to be close by and waved to this sad wave, how come you are sad? And the guru wave is able to tell this wave, you are nothing but water. Ocean is nothing but water, so therefore you are ocean. You don't have to stop being wave in order to be ocean. It's a cognitive shift. It's at the level of the notion which is changed. That you are, that you are just a wave is a notion which is replaced by I am nothing but the ocean. That is what the whole thing. And so here, this is the that I am, in the ocean of samsara. The ocean of samsara is but a notion, dismissing which I am Purusha. Which Purusha? Sarvan Purayati iti, that which fills up everything. And this is what is, in this one word, Puruṣasaṃjño, this is the mahāvākya comes through very, very, very beautifully. And then, and then he says, going further, buddhi purvam ihaiva vartate. Again, if somebody, earlier it was said, sve mahimni tishtati, in mantra number 4, that this lives in its own glory, this consciousness that manifests as Bhagavan, this consciousness endowed with body, mind, sense complex, manifests as the Jiva, endowed with limitless power, manifests as Bhagavan. And who is doing this endowing? It's mithya. It's a mithya endowment. It's a mithya endowment. It is, it is a kalpita shakti. It is a shakti that is non-separate from Bhagavan. That's why all our Bhagavans are happily married. Shakti and Shiva are one. Lakshmi and Vishnu are one. That's why we even have Ardhanarishvara. A conjoined deity, the left side, the creative aspect, and is the one which manifests things and manifests as in the form of the Jagat. The immanent aspect is feminine and the transcendental aspect is coded as masculine. Just for the sake of, understanding this from our divided, dualistic mentality. Otherwise there is no difference. Even transcendental and all is just for us. It is just this one non-separate, reality that is revealed as the truth of this jiva, this crying jiva. So this is what the thing is. And so here he says, the Prajapati tells the Valakhilyas, buddhi purvam ihaiva vartate, amshena iti. Amsha means part, but it should not be taken part, it should not be seen as part. Ihaiva vartate Puruṣasaṃjño. Where is this Purusha? Ihaiva. It is very much indwelling this body. And where was it before this body was born? Where was this before this Jagat was quote unquote born? It was in a causal form. Amsha here means as a possibility. It was there as a possibility. It was still sentient. It was still Satchidananda. It was existent. It was sentient. Sadeva Somya idam agre asit. Before all this, there was this Sat, a sentient existence that was limitless as a potential. And now also there is Sat. What is this Sat? That Sat is you alone. You alone. That Sat is you alone. Shvetaketu, this is what is told in the Chandogya, and here too the Valakhilyas are told there, Ihaiva vartate, it is indwelling this body, it is unavailable for objectification, it is subtle, sukshmaha, agrahyaha, unavailable for objectification, adrishyaha, therefore it is invisible, you cannot, invisible means not available for any sense organ to point it out. And it is there in a causal form. It indwells this body. And they had asked, without desire, how can you create? So the desire is what? The desire is just memory. It is revealed here. It's the memory of the previous cycle of creation. And the desire is not like your desire or the jiva's desire. And what is the jiva's desire? To have this, to have that, to want this, to want that, to go here, to go there. Those kinds of desires are not there. It is just it's just the limitlessness bursting forth of this being, as it were, because it is so joyful that it cannot be contained in itself. That is what this Upanishad is going to say later, in a portion that we are not going to study. That this Bhagavan became fivefold in the form of elements because it just, that fullness, it wanted to share. This is just the, question of intentionality, explained as an aftermath from the human standpoint. That's all it is. Because really speaking, there is no cause for creation. Why did the creation come? You can't ask that question. Because, we maintain that the creation is nothing but Bhagavan. So if you say that creation is not separate from Bhagavan, you can't sit and say, why did the creation come? It hasn't come. No, but it has come. But you have to look at the truth of it. So really speaking, that's a moot question. So therefore he says, Amshena vartate ihaiva. So just like it indwells this body, the potential, the kernel for this self-effulgent, self-shining, non-dually one, is there, as the manifester of the universe. But how do I understand it, How do I understand that this creation happened with just a remembrance? Just like a sleeping individual. A sleeping individual has no intentionality. The intentionality was what? When the being was awake. When the person was awake, the person before he or she went to sleep had a sankalpa. Tomorrow is a big day. I have a lot to do. I have a puja. I have to go to office. I have to do this, do that. And so I have to wake up 15 minutes earlier. And then keeps the alarm also. Wakes up just a second before the alarm goes off. Wakes up on their own. So really, this is an interesting, concept. Really speaking, did the sleeping being wake up? Technically, yes. The person was sleeping and now the person is awake. So one is constrained to say that the sleeping being woke up. But the sleeping being has no kartritvam. The sleeping being has no doership. The sleeping being also has no intentionality, desire to wake up. In fact, the sleeping being wants to continue sleeping. Sleeping being cannot wake up because there is no intentionality. In the sleeping being, there is no desire. And in the sleeping being, there is also, therefore, neither the executability of the sankalpa of waking up. This is very interesting, and this is a abiding discussion in many Upanishads and the Bhashyas, because this is a very interesting issue. How does the sleeping being wake up? Because the sleeping being is not a doer. Where is the doership? It is there as a potential. It is not actualized. Where is the intentionality? It is not there. What intention can the sleeping person have? What desire can the sleeping person have? Sleeping person doesn't have the desire to wake up, or even the desire to go out, or the desire for pakodas. The sleeping being is not available for transaction. Just like this Bhagavan in the form of a, consciousness before the Jagat has come into being is not available for transaction. So you can't say Bhagavan, this Satchitananda created, because really speaking, how is it possible to create? And this the Valakhilyas saw, and they asked this question, very brilliant question. And the answer is equally brilliant, because you can't say, this Prajapati is telling here, you cannot really say, even though that may be technically what it looks like, you cannot say the sleeping being woke up. Who woke up? The awake being who had made the decision to wake up, woke up. Yeah. So too, this cycle of creation, how did it come? It came from the memory of the previous cycle of creation. Because this cycle of creation cannot come from this consciousness, from nowhere. Because this consciousness is what? Like the sleeping person has no intentionality, has no desire, has no potential, has no kartrutva, doership. So therefore what? Satapo tapyata. This is what it means in the Maitri Upaniṣad, that this being contemplated. What is this contemplation? Contemplated how the previous cycle was. Before itself that contemplation was there. The blueprint of the Jagat was there in that previous cycle of creation, which just was manifest. Beautiful. Who thinks of a sleeping person like that? I think this is just brilliant. Very, very brilliant. So this is, so don't get confused with the words. The words are very difficult here. Difficult meaning they serve to distract here, and they serve to make one miss the vision here. So just listen to the answer. Don't go with the specific words. Amshena means as a potential, like even suptasya buddhi purvam vibodha. So suptasya eva, like even the sleeping person. Eva means what? Like indeed buddhi purvam vibodha eva meti. So the vibodha, the intentionality about waking up at a certain time was made when? Buddhi purvam. So it was made prior to going to sleep. The sleeping person did not say, I have to wake up at 5 o'clock. No, the awake person said that where? The previous night. So too, this Purusha in the form of Bhagavan, just like how it was created in the previous cycle of creation, just brought that to manifestation, and it became known as this cycle. As soon as we say this cycle, we are in the clutches of time. Really speaking, it's a timeless, manifestation, demanifestation going on, because time is also part of the manifestation. Okay, so अथ यः खलु वाव एतस्य अंशः अयं यश्चेताम् आचः प्रतिपुरुषः क्षेत्रज्ञः. Yes, so this self is, it says, so atah yoha khalu vava etasya amshaha ayam. So whatever is there is a potential of this creator alone, is the amshaha, presence, is the presence of this creation alone. So eshaha, this self, is also the presence of this creator alone, because of pratipurushaha. So one was Purusha. This is the Jiva here is known as Pratipurusha. Is just a, this Purusha reflected in this being. Reflected again within this quote, within quotes, because there is no reflection going on. This Purusha reflected in this being is what is talked about. And who is the truth of this Purusha? Kshetrajñah sankalpa adhyavasaya abhimanalingah prajapatihi vishwakyah chetanena idam shariram chetanavat pratishthapitam, etc. We will see on Monday. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.